Hey everybody, welcome back to King of Beta. We are here in the second series that me and Vulkenhyn get the pleasure of casting. We're going to be looking at NERP 123 versus Lahopaa. NERP 123 also goes by NERP the Ninja, or just simply NERP. In this match he's NERP 123, and it makes the overlay look a little bit better to be centered, so went with that. If you guys don't know NERP is definitely probably one of the biggest names on the YouTube side of the community. He definitely releases a ton of content. Top 5 plays of the week. Lots of decks, lots of silly things, lots of serious ones. He had his Scrolls rap. We don't want to talk about that one too much, or even remember it. But Lahopaa has always been a very constant member in the scene. He is a member of Strategic Angels. NERP is Badger Guild, by the way. This is going to be a good match. Lahopaa's always been a force, and NERP is always been a force as well. He's always been at the top of the ladder. And it's gonna be a good match, I think.
Lahopaa, he is not somebody that a lot of people generally like. He's good, and a lot of people know him because he's good. But he's not somebody that a lot of people generally talk about. But he is a force to be reckoned with, especially in tournament play. He makes really smart plays and builds really good decks.
Yeah. Alright, let's look at the decks that are going to come out in game 1. For this first match, Lahopaa is going to come out with Decay. It's going to look a little bit similar to the Decay that we saw in the first match that we cast, which was Eva versus Atmaz. There's a few changes. I immediately see a Rattle Him, which there's only one. I only see one actually.
Yeah.
One Rattle Him. He's also got one Watcher. You don't usually see ones come out in a lot of decks.
Yeah, and I think the one kind of signifies that he's preparing for the situational engagement, right? He's if he runs up against a similar deck to his, then he definitely wants to have that Rattle Him to kind of take out the Halls of Umlasa. Otherwise, it kind of ends up being a slightly expensive Eye of Eagle summons type card to draw your lingering spells. And then Watchergeddon has just been a staple of Decay, especially late game Decay, for a long time now. It's fallen off as of late just because people use different forms of Decay. But it's still a very potent force. If you get that combo off, it does a ton of idle damage.
Yeah, it could be in there. The reason he only has one and then two Necrogens could very well be because if he runs up against a wall, but he got the idols down pretty low, he might eventually have something in the late game. He's not wanting to rush it though. When you have 3 Watchers, 3 Necrogens, that is what you're going for, and that's not what this deck is going for. It's just another option in case he just can't get down those last few idols.
Yeah, and I think that Watcher is probably pretty important for the contingency of the super late game order matchup, where even though they have the Imperial resources to heal up their idols, they also have the ability to hurdle with very well with the Warding Stones and the Waking Stones. And so if he does a lot of kind of damage over time, late game order is just kind of not going to be able to mitigate that. So that might be why we see the Watcher in this deck.
And NERP's running a kind of range energy deck. Of course, we've got the it's definitely going to be going for those really powerful Bombards and Machinators in there as well. But there, comparing to something like Atmaz's deck that we saw earlier, Violent Dispersal and Thunder Surge are going to hit up the removal. Definitely makes Necrogeddons kind of suck if you are able to Thunder Surge the next turn, as long as you didn't die in that turn. And Potion Resistance Push resistance isn't run in every energy deck, and honestly, I love this scroll. It's a fantastic delay scroll. He's only running 2, but um, if you want to protect some units that are down the board, it's really good. Not going to do too much against poison, though.
Yeah, and it's Potion of Resistance, I'm guessing, is mainly in there for the either the aggro or the late game God Hand growth matchup, because Potion of Resistance is extremely effective against those. Two other really big things that I want to point out in Nerp's deck is that he has Automata Forge in there, be a pretty effective kind of pseudo counter to the curse poison thing, because Automated Forge can be cursed, of course, but really it's not going to take nearly as much damage as his regular creatures are, because the Baleful Witch does not trigger on structures.
Mm-hmm.
And then another big thing I want to point out is the Hired Marksman is going to be really good if you can keep him on the board for just picking off the Decay's key like center and backline units.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Witch Doctors.
Yeah, and like pinging down Witch Doctors into burn range or into Thunder Surge range, things of that nature. And they combo really well. Having the 3 countdown, it means that they have slightly slow tempo, but they combo really well with Bombard when you can trigger other things with Bombard, as well as getting that shot off with the Hired Marksman.
Yeah, and we talked about historically, energy is a very hard counter to Decay because of structures. And Atmaz was running a deck that got completely blown out of the water by Poison Curse because it was mostly creatures that were able to be taken out by it. But Automata Forge, Oculus Cannon, they're going to be sticking around, and they're not going to be going anywhere. And he's also got removal, and he's got very key things to remove those problem units. So I'm going to be favoring Nerp in this matchup. Definitely, just because it looks like a good matchup for him.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna go a little bit against you and favor Lahopaa. We've seen first Poison Decay is in the last matchups, and I think that this might actually be a better constructed deck than the last one. I think that Nerp is not as susceptible to it, but I think that it's such a potent force. I'm not sure he's going to be able to stand up to it.
All right, let's jump in. First thing I want to point out before we get into the game is actually these lovely ESL heads. We saw the Mojang head before with Eva vs Atmaz. Nerp has got the lovely top of the ladder before reset head, those purple feathers, and Lahopaa is running the ESL winner head. I don't remember which one he got that from, but been handed out to the Hall of Fame people multiple times, depending on how well they did in a season. And just showing once again that this is called King of Beta, and these are both exceptional players. Jumping in, Lahopaa has a decent draw. It's a little too heavy on resources, but Nerp is going to mulligan, and he's going to get Dust Runner out. Yep, he's going to play Dust Runner. Replay mod throws me off sometimes.
And that turn 1 Dust Runner is going to be fairly important. It might be it might be a little overshadowed by the fact that his kind of option is to take out the Loyal Darkling, which is probably going to end up having a... he sparks it. Okay,
yeah. The great thing about that is I was just going to say that Rod Eater was going to come down the next turn. And hitting the Darkling, he would have just been feeding. He would have been putting Rot Eater outside of range of the Dust Runner. He sparks it, and now the Rot Eater is forced to stay down here, up and away from, or down and away from the Dust Runner. It was a really good spark. You normally wouldn't think to spark a Loyal Darkling, but get rid of that early board advantage that Decay can get, because those small units that you don't care about, they're going to be fodder for the big units.
Yeah, and the Storm Runners are really going to be key in this matchup, because he's going to be able to engage Lahopaa without really getting in range or in a danger range of his units. If he can keep those Stormrunners on the field, it's going to be they're going to be a really potent force.
He's going to get down an early Automata Forge. He's got to run away here because the Rod Eater is threatening him. And he does draw a Languid.
So right now he's technically going to do 0 damage, but Nerp does have the Machinated in hand, which in last match proved to be kind of, you can never count on energy to just not have attack. They've always got some sort of crazy attack boost up their sleeve, generally in the form of Machinated.
Yeah, kind of crazy that he is gonna. He's depending on that Stormrunner not being removed is the thing, because I wouldn't necessarily machinated for a Marshanda at the time.
Yeah, and I would completely agree with that. I think that with all of the ridiculous removal that Decay has at its disposal, you want to make sure that you're getting the most value out of any enchantment that you put down, and I think that was probably just a little too early. You want to make sure that it's actually going to get as much value as possible.
Yeah, and it didn't really get much value. It's already gone. 2 Rod Eaters being down, it's really tough because unless you can get that Stormrunner to hit perfectly with a Machinated, one of them is going to end up feeding the other. One of them is going to stick around for a while.
Yeah, and if he can hit, he's not really within range to, but and it just got Curse Present, so it's not really going to make a difference. But if he was able to hit both of those Rod Eaters with the Stormrunner, he would have been able to Thunder Surge them, which I think was the plan. But he just had to ditch it because they took him out.
Easily the best thing going on for Nerp right now is that Automata Forge. It's going to be a presence while the rest of his board is getting wiped.
Yeah, and I think that I'm not sure about moving all those units into the same lane.
Well, they're also in the same clump, and he already used 2 Stormrunners, but there's one left. I think Lahopaa's just taking the risk of not believing a Stormrunner Bombard is going to come anytime soon. He doesn't have the resources for a Machinated Stormrunner Bombard, and he doesn't really have the scrolls. It's a healthy bet. He's not going to move the Harvester up. I would think that he would start aggressively moving towards the units, because that Harvester is going to go off very soon.
I think that with that positioning of the Harvester is probably the best positioning he could have, because Nerp needs to contest the middle lane right now, and having that Harvester there makes it very, very difficult for Nerp to actually contest it without losing big, because if he contests the middle lane, he's just going to lose whatever units he has, which are generally going to be, with energy, are generally going to be units that have a high card investment, like
now, Lahopaa is very content not moving up, even though that Harvester is going to go off. He's very content moving away because, again, he does have the Watcher Necro in this deck, and he's got 4-2-5. And I think Idol's down to 4-2-5.
I think he's very kind of sure that he is going to be able to take out the middle Idol, so he can kind of ignore it now.
He's actually going to move the Harvester down?
Yep.
I was thinking he was going to take out the middle Idol with it, but he's got the one Darkling down. This is looking really grim for Nerp. He just kind of got rushed Idol-wise. There's no real answer. Once he got rid of the Stormrunners, there's no real answer for getting rid of the Rod Eaters.
Yeah, and at this point, it's kind of
There's a
it's
good
almost
bombard,
a
but
little bit of a moot point because he's got that 1 damage, or he's got that 1 or that 2 damage left on that center idol to win the game, and that means as soon as Lahopaa draws a Darkling, Energy doesn't have any sort of
he needs to be
movement.
really careful because Lahopaa's own idols are getting down really low, and another bombard would really hurt. I mean, that bombard right there did a lot of work, and it got rid of the main threat, which was the Harvester. And he still doesn't have this Darkling. This might turn into a little bit of an idol rush. He's got the other bombard. And he's got
double Oculus Cannon.
Yeah, he's got an Oculus Cannon as well. He's gonna Violent Dispersal because the Relentless unit is the real threat right now.
When he bombards next turn, he's going to be able to use that hired marksman to take out a unit.
Humans are gonna get cursed again.
Comes a Baleful Witch down.
Yeah.
That's gonna pop. That's gonna pop everybody. Yep.
But he's still got 2 cannon, still 2 automatons and the Oculus. Oh, what is he gonna do here? He's gonna do another bombard. Yep. And the marksman's gonna hit the Rod Eater. That's not gonna take care of him. Oh yeah, it is.
That's gonna be a board clear.
That's gonna be a board clear. And look at the idle health. A Darkling is really needed right now. Like, really needed. And I don't know if it's gonna happen. He's already used 2 Darklings.
Yeah, I'm not
one more Darkling. He's got 11 scrolls left, so he's gonna get there. Man, but
yeah.
Nerp needs another bombard really badly.
Yeah, because he's working on a clock right now. He needs to be able to kind of take out that middle idol. But
there's a Watcher.
But if Lahopaa draws another Darkling, then he can just kind of ignore the middle idol. I'm not sure that not protecting the middle idol was the best move there.
Oh, there's the bombard. There's the bombard. Violent Dispersal on the Watcher. He doesn't want to
play with that RNG.
He doesn't want to. I wouldn't want to play with that RNG either. He's got a 1 in 3 chance right now.
That's definitely an excellent decision on his part. Yeah, it's odd because this game has.
There's the Darkling.
Almost turned on its head.
Huge clock now because next turn is a
nope.
Nope, he's got it already.
There it is.
Wow, that was
really good. That was a good game. It looked like a Nerp was probably one and just winning the game.
Yeah, all he needed honestly was the 1 more bombard.
Yep.
And that was definitely a lot faster. I thought it was gonna go more focusing on the board control part, but it really turned into an idle rush at the end where they both kind of staked their claims on different sides of the board. Lahopaa didn't really want anything to do with that Automata Forge on top, and Nerp couldn't really deal with the Harvester and the Rot Eaters, so they kind of divided lines and would sometimes clash in the middle, but they both got their idols down to the point where Nerp had Bombard and Lahopaa had Loyal Darkling, and it was just going to be a race to who could get what.
And a really interesting thing about watching, the way that Lahopaa played his deck as opposed to the way that Eva played his deck is that the decks were, other than like 1 or 2 cards, very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see how the individual player strategy really changes how the deck works.
Mm-hmm.
Because Lahopaa, he was kind of measured about it, but he was really the entire time just going for that kill shot and just trying to take Nerp out as quickly as possible. Whereas Eva had much more of kind of control game going on,
mm-hmm.
where he oppressed the other side until it was just over and there was no coming back.
Yeah, and a lot of these scrolls have different interpretations by different people. I mean, We've seen that all the way back to how Harvester was done before the nerf. People would play Harvester in the front as a wall, and others would play it in the back as a killer unit. There's plenty of other situations with Automata Forge. How you interpret Automata Forge. Is it going to be a creature spawner or is it going to be a wall? there's all different ways to play these decks. Are you going to idle rush? Are you going to go for board control? Are you going to remove units? Um, there's just all kinds of options. And even though these decks were somewhat similar, there are little minor differences that turn it into a different game. And I would say Eva definitely comparing Eva to Atmaz, Eva Atmaz match here, because it is the same matchup. It is Decay versus Energy. Um, this was, I think, two decks that were way more dangerous against each other. I think Eva's deck was a hard counter compared to this game was both of these players have answers to one another, and both of them are extremely explosive and going to try to end the game as quickly as possible. So
Yeah, and I think that a large portion of that came from a little bit. He got a little bit more longevity. Nerp got a little bit more longevity out of his ranged energy by having that Automata Forge on the field that was spawning units that might die, but they're kind of sinks for Infectious Blight. They're sinks for Curse because you can't leave them on the field or they'll just take over because it's spawning one every 2 to 3 turns.
Oculus Cannon was a huge help
Yeah,
as well. That was
and
pretty massive.
yeah, and we've seen in anybody who's played any ranked or anything recently has seen that Oculus Cannon, especially the Oculus Cannon Bombard combo, is a force to be reckoned with. Um, it will completely decimate you and can come out of almost nowhere. And I think that it showed in this game because Nerp was a hair's breadth away from taking the board back.
It just really sucked for him. Once Darkling gets once it gets within Darkling range, you're working with a clock, and you don't know how short that clock is. And I think he might have looked at the resources and saw, hey, there's no Necrogeddon combo. There could be a Damning Curse, but
But yeah,
he didn't have as much time as he would have hoped for.
yep.
That was a great combo at the end. Yeah, this is a great match, guys. We're gonna be back with a game 2 in a moment. Lahopaa is 1 game up. We'll see if Nerp decides to change things up. I don't think this was a bad deck, but we'll see if he wants to try to do something different here in the next game. Once again, this is the ThePurplePanzy along with Vulkenhyn, and we will be right back with more action